Hey, what's up, guys? I'm just popping on for a little bit, saying hello. Um, this is like my first live stream on YouTube in a hot minute. I've done a couple of Odysseys, um, and I like Odyssey um, in general, um, but Odyssey also doesn't deliver. Um, but that's uh, but that's all right. Like I gave it time. I could have come back. You know, like I'm not like my channel was taken down. It was like my channel was taken down. There's guys that are such a big deal that YouTube makes sure that they in name just can't make another channel, which is a big deal when that happens when your channel is kind of like a business platform, right? Because it's like your network. It's like your TV network access portal, right? And I make a little bit of content that's like that, where I'm splicing stuff together, or I've put out a thoroughly thought out interview and everything else. But for the most part, um, my interests were, even when I was doing this real big all the time, was not. I really didn't want to be about this stuff. I was doing this stuff because I just felt like I had to, um, as just part of something that was coming up as a result of my failures in my music endeavors. Um, all the things that were putting me away from that was leaving me with all of that stuff. And so that's really built where I'm at now. And I'm always open to the music. But um, but right now I'm just in this void space where um, I can't be. It doesn't make sense to be the guy that's about the music anymore. Like, um, it does, but not, you know, even in the modest capacity I was thinking about it before. Um, because, now we're sitting here in this very particular kind of decline of the West, um, in a way that's kind of freaky, right? Because you're looking at this world that was built and destroyed by a certain continuity of people, a certain continuity of people that is uh, not so easy to notice their connective tissues as you look at the different generations of influencers upon the political sphere, in which is the backdrop for this observation, right? Um, all these things that we've done, it's one thing to see the end of an era of something that was really kind of cool for its time, right? But you're seeing something that is, definitely interesting, definitely a good thing, possibly a better thing. Not necessarily a better experience, but a better kind of thing. You know, like you saw, like, drive-through movies, they go away. Drive-through movies are an awesome kind of thing that should still exist, or whatever, right? But we got the progress of, eventually IMAX came into play, and other such things, right? Here, there's nothing coming, and there's nothing for them, right? You can take that movie like you could do whatever technological thing you want to do with a movie. If the movie has been, if the entire industry is denying a movie a right to its own soul, to be a movie that has like a life, that is an encompassment of an honest reflection of um, of society, then you don't have a culture anymore. You don't have, well, you don't have, your culture is no longer acknowledged. It's up to you to say that you want to be accepted by those who reject everything that is interesting to you, that you love, that is it's got some level of relationship to your identity, right? And it's fine to hold on to awesome things that were, right? There's no, I'm not going to fault my parents because Gone with the Wind is still a great picture for them to want to go and watch and things like that. And, because that was a movie that wowed them in their time, and they've been wowed greater than that since then. But it was special in the time of them. And thus that's part of the cultural relationship. Here, all facets of what they will acknowledge is being rejected. And it's not just your big entertainments that on a personal level, like, oh, we're pulling your favorite music artist off of the whatever, right? And you'll notice that you're getting one of three things kind of happening. Either your favorite artist has some independent thought that fringes them out, and they may not even have quality fans because they're not fringing out in a cool way, like other guys that have broken pattern. Like your Owen Benjamins, your Roseanne Barrs out there, all these guys that would rather have all of their relationship with Hollywood Babylon burned to the ground than to not be able to speak about the world that they experienced, and to want to really try and undo some of the damage, knowing how that world has damaged or has manipulated you into damaging yourself, really, because that's because the rhetoric is strong. It helps you drive the point across, but you can also forget the most essential lesson, that there is no victim here, right? So it's them feeding off of your ignorance to build an anti-culture in you, right? Before it was an anti-culture, it was really more about rebellion, where there was a challenge to convention, but it wasn't trying to tear all of convention down, right? There weren't a hell of a lot of movies like that, and they had to be made exceptionally well to be accepted for having certain kinds of subversive ends to their storytelling, right? Back when our sense of identity was maybe an illusion, but it was more foundational before freedom of speech got threatened. The main reason why freedom of speech is fucking threatened right now is because reality itself is coming apart at the seams at a time where also there are people in complete denial about reality, and all of their reality is largely conditional on an accepted social agreement about things, that accepted social agreement used to be in complete lockstep with academia, and it may still be very much in a certain kind of lockstep with academia per se, because it's academia is a major aspect of the logic that goes behind any kind of coercive or manipulative idea that is going to be propagandically pushed in mainstream media, right? So this is the only signal that people that have lived their entire lives on surface level, not even first veil of the illusion, have been going by, and so they're in a melancholy about it because nobody is coming out of a whole lot of things that there are some things that are fine out there, right? Like there's a hell of a lot of MMA fights out there that are good. Like there's plenty of bits and pieces of things, right? But as far as what is the exalted, non-controversial top of the culture that we produce from this media juggernaut that covers and manufactures it as part of what we think is our culture, which some of it is, but it's all mixed in there with somebody trying to sell you something. And propaganda is somebody trying to sell you something. And it's all mixed in there with these different elements, whether it be something as innocent as your financial benefactor, the people paying for the commercial advertisement space, or if it's based on some backroom contract about certain things that people are using or doing behind the scenes, that is just as equal a valued product contract as the guys doing their advertising and so on and so forth. And then all that stuff gets finagled into what you're being exposed to in some way, shape, or form. It's brought up in conversation. It's inserted in symbolism or ad or subliminal advertising, like when somebody just puts like a can of Pepsi on their desk, just like that. You see the Pepsi logo, and then everybody knows that Pepsi paid for that because the continuity guy would otherwise have taken it out, because it's just like no product placements unless paid for, because this movie is going to be seen by a bazillion people, and they need us a little bit more than we need them. Right? And, if you got a good, well-funded movie, the product placements don't have to fucking be leveraged, right? If a product placement is going to be there, it'll still be a good movie because people are working together and the advertiser's not compromising anything, and it's just getting in the shot, doing its job. Nobody minds. It's believable because it was a common product that you would be expected to see in that circumstance, because, there's superheroes fighting each other at the Walmart, or something like that. But you get, that's why we had the Transformers films. This is hot garbage. It was fun for a couple of movies, but then it became hot garbage, pushing vomitory agendas and just inundating you with clankety clanks and like, oh my god, it became unwatchable. It's like watching all the special effects started feeling like somebody was taking an actual surgical saw to my brain in real time as I'm watching 50 trillion things moving around as something's transforming, making the noises while there's big action explosions and everything else, and it's jabbing needles into your eyes, being exposed to that much detail, and it gets almost distracting, especially when you've got a movie. These movies have an annoying adolescence to them, a very annoying adolescence to them that is superimposing off of other interesting ideas that they're throwing at you of a more esoteric nature, which I would try to interpolate from the films, but the films were so childishly written in all of those respects. It was just there's plenty of more esoterically deep films. I can't just use the pyramid references and make some sort of cool Zecharia Sitchin parallel, that wasn't done better with something less asinine somewhere else, right? And this was all shit that people in that reality field were just in denial of. They're just, there's superficial people just being wowzered by this, that, and the other thing, and who cares? Right? They get viscerally angry when you basically insult them, and that's just this underlying mental illness issue where hold on, you got way too much of a relationship with this stuff. You're really kind of absorbed into it, right? And Transformers is kind of a bad example for that. Good examples of that is stuff that women like. Men are will not talk bad about stuff that women like. If they're in a world and all they hear is how women like X, Y, and Z things, they will do the job of making a world that never introduces that woman to somebody who just runs around and takes a big shit on everything that she likes, right? Keeping her in this special kind of box of illusion, which is kind of understandable considering the way women are. No offense, ladies, right? Women, just they more so than men have to be approached in a proper way because women are consensus. And so getting them to break with consensus scares the rest of the hive, if you will. And then they get into all this stuff about manipulations and corruptions and everything else, right? A woman goes through her own process of doubts and when she's going to initiate curiosities and changes based on those doubts, so on and so forth. Otherwise, they may just simply keep trying to make it work without challenging their own belief systems. And we've been living in an illusionary world that has protected our consensus reality coming from the feminine force that has been corrupted and inverted into the infernal versus the divine feminine force being enabled by the men. And whoever is on top of your general status quo that everybody is comfortable with the foundation of the continuity of what the world is and where it's going. But I tell you what though, um, when you've been doing all of this stuff, because I definitely needed to absorb a whole lot of this, right? It's just like when 2020 came, I may have doubled down in the cave, if you will. You know, I might have been some sort of rebel about it. I may have been some sort of not believing it, but I probably would have been a lot more compliant and probably would not have challenged so many damn things, you know, even after the fact. Because I would have had no foundation. I would have been I would have been pushed more in that direction if I had listened to people who told me to drop it all. But the wisdom of never having dropped it and having uh, remained unchanged, um, you know, is at the very least producing very personal rewards. My life change as a whole, which I wanted my couple of these earliest videos on my reboot of my channel here to be a reflection of this new um, this new me that perhaps you who haven't been following me on BitChute or Odyssey in particular were not aware of, right? I mean, because I was doing all sorts of stuff. Because, you know, it's just lost YouTube. I mean, if you're following me on Instagram, you're watching me go. You know, you're following me on Odyssey, you're watching me go. Frickin' Twitter. Um, you know, I'm out there. I'm out there. And but I took my time coming back to YouTube. I needed space to clear my head. I had known after I made that Northman video, which I've re-uploaded, knowing that that also wasn't the video that was the problem. I probably one of the two other videos I had thrown out there unrelated to the Northman in the interim before everything got pulled down. That's probably what fucking did it. It's all right. Because after I made that video, I kind of felt it. I kind of felt like, why does this feel like I've done everything that I, you know, it's just like energetic. It's just like I don't have that energetic urge to be like, all right, what's next, right? I didn't have a what's next irking after Northman. I spent so much time talking about making that video, spent so much time watching the movie over and over again in prep, and so much time recording what I needed to record, saying what I had to say, editing together what I had to edit together, cleaning up my audio. Oh my god, I put so much effing calories into making that video, which I think is okay at best. Um, you know, just because, you know, I might have bitten off more than I can chew per se, to get it all out there in not necessarily the sleekest production that somebody's going to be looking for. So you've got to really be, you know, I'm the kind of person you've got to be patient for. You've got to be patient for me because I'm very, very unorthodox. And I am frustratingly backwards about things. And it's as good as it is now from going years of doing it backwards and eventually getting it right. But having started doing the last things you're supposed to do first, which, you know, it comes from a certain degree of my inner impulse control, my tolerance for all the gritty work that I, you know, never thought I was going to be valuing and doing in my path work when I was a child. You know, was a child, I had very different ideas about things. And people have blamed me for dreaming, right? For being a dreamer and making dreamer-based decisions. And although that is true, and I take personal responsibility for that, it is also um, it is also that for me it was natural to think, if nobody's going to invest the time with love and patience to help me out and explain things to me as I'm growing up as a small child and being told no about all these different things, and at a certain point almost feeling like I was being punished, and that's the only reason why you were saying no, because you just had an overall disapproval of me as a human fucking being, thus giving me a self-image problem over time. Um, that, I learned to realize that this kind of person that happens to be what I think is somebody who is doing things that makes them pretty darn happy, and that allegedly you can be a successful and productive person. It wasn't like I wasn't like rebelling. Nothing was like a rebellion idea. Like, rebellion was an idea that they put in my head about what I was doing. I was just like, what? I can't do this? It's just like, why you got to be a rebel? What do you mean rebel? Right? And and calling me a rebel was basically, it was like kind of like saying you're a sinner. Right? It's just like to be like you're doing wrong things that you should feel guilty and ashamed of, right? You're going to do harm to us, and naturally, why do you think we're upset? We're upset because you're harming us. That's what they're implying, um, by how much they take personal investment in stopping you from doing what you're doing. And this is all because, like, your parents are conditioned to take responsibility for you, although they are also conditioned to hand over responsibility to the state at the same time. And it becomes this very, very terrible relationship between what normally seemed like half the time my parents were reacting to things, which in hindsight it's because the government would have come down on them for the consequences of my behavior if they had said yes to me. And then this taught me a lesson in that family to government dynamic, that I think a lot of people missed. And you look at what was the college student, the young person who had reached adult age in the West, particularly in America, what they where their values were at, where their emotional intelligence were at. Their protest against effectively conservatives, the Republican Party, wasn't really a protest against any of those things in their heart. That's what their mind told them that they were protesting. That's what they had to rationalize and intellectualize. The truth is that they're all rebelling against their parents. And when 2020 came, we all know that the entire tone of 2020 through 2021 was mommy and daddy putting down a temper tantrum That's what happened. And when you understand why that was allowed to happen, then you understand why people that you thought were your champion were actually there in place to rile them up, to make those conditions possible, to intentionally cause the conditions to destroy all the good shit you were doing because you had to hide your terrible plan with a really great plan. Because no one should know your terrible plan because that benefits you. It doesn't benefit them. It doesn't benefit us on the street. That was my point of denial as I watched things go on, and then I just looked at it and I said, yeah, it's always crazy like this with you people, right? And just like, like everything's going to have, things are going to move on. You're going to go back and go watch your next freaking wrestling match, your next movie or whatever. And you're going to forget how much you hate me right this second, like always, just the way they would just eventually move on, get to their entertainment tropes and everything else, right? Because they're permitted to be extreme when someone else is called an extremist, and then they just go back to the status quo, right? Well, here was a complete 24/7 inundation with extremists, which gave them permission to be extremists through this whole narrative sculpturing as such. And they just let it keep going up in the heat. Up, and up. And with very little forward acknowledgement of that. It was more hindsight acknowledgement. Like, after it was too late and a bunch of things were burned down, they were just like, man, look at how you've instigated this. Instead of saying, listen, why don't you stop instigating that? You tell people lies like that and go burn a whole city down. You freaking bring that up. But no, that's not what the guy did. It's not what the guy did at all. And instead, we got our psychos in the clown show. And as I've said a couple of times, 2020, we lost our innocence. We lost a whole generation lost its innocence. A whole other generation watched their entire world get, destroyed. It's just like restaurants aren't coming back. Big movie theater, like, let's all go to the movies and have a party watching a great film made by filmmakers that we trust and like us and respect us, and it's going to be fun. That's not happening anymore. None of that shit's happening anymore. Live music is still happening, though. I've seen footage from, live music from musicians, from those kinds of performing artists that have integrity. I mean, I went to go see fucking Emperor, but then again, that's all subculture stuff. That's stuff that doesn't get the elevation by the media. It just is here, right? As long as the conditions are permissible, meaning live shows are allowed to happen and there's no social distancing and et cetera, boom, there it is. There's the concert, there's the show, there's the gig, there's all the fun, everybody's cool. And there's life. There's life there. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And I'd rather live in a world that has shitty movies and awesome music than shitty music and awesome movies, to be honest with you. As much as I love a good movie, I'd rather have good music. So this is all indicative of the wave function collapse idea, right? The wave function collapse, is one interpretation, because all of us are dealing with our feelings of knowing that the continuity of the way things have been done, and we're certainly going in a certain direction. Now the narrative has taken us in a completely different direction, right? It's alien to a lot of people. It's set up for certain millennials to be supportive of it as they are coming into this future. I saw a short interview that Robert Phoenix did with a kid who was doing some really cool stuff. Very, very smart kid who I guess is being raised by some based parents. And he was given a good interview, and the premise of the interview is that he is from Generation A, which I guess is the first post-millennial generation that's upcoming, because I guess this kid's like, I don't know, 14 or something like that. Right, so it's we've been talking about millennials for so long. We're now realizing that the millennials are now turning a corner and becoming they're settling into the first wave of workforce, like adult life establishment, in all the various ways that they are. And then there's Generation A, and hopefully Generation A is going to kick a lot of ass, because they're going to look at everything the millennials went through and have the ability to judge various baby boomers throughout. Hell, if they're lucky, they may even find somebody from the greatest generation. And have all these different generations to judge and to look at the future and to say, oh my God, I can't believe these people, man, I can't believe how those guys acted, right? Here's some of my bright ideas about these things that they're flipping out about, et cetera, et cetera. But either way, this is a future that's coming in that the support, at least in the way that we're accustomed to showcase you and the prospects of your bright future, they're not quite there the way that they were there, right? At least not on as big of a scale, right? Everything is getting crushed up, and all too often it's too much to explain how well you can kind of see it on a market level, because you see the market level because of how you perceive it on an esoteric level. And if you don't know how to bridge the esoteric to the baseline of the market explanation of things, you're not going to be able to tell somebody why it's a wiser idea to go one way or the other with how they're spending money, because who the hell are you? And never take financial advice from somebody poorer than you. So can't fault them for not listening to me. I mean, look at me. You think that's on purpose? That's just this all day for years, because I'm too cheap to go buy another executive. And I want an executive. I want this big thing. It's just like, this costs a lot of money, and I spent that money once. Like, that's kind of how I operate. I spend the money once, and then I try not to ruin it and see how long it lasts. That's what I fucking do. So it's referred to as the wave function collapse, as kind of a quantum explanation for things. A lot of people talk about the quote 5D situation. I think that the emotional energies, the energies in general, the way we perceive reality, everything else, everything is in such wacky flux that we're confusing it for things like we're quote ascending, right? I mean, like, if anybody's ascending here, it's me, and it's not because there's some wave happening. It's because I've been lifting weights, I've been drinking liquid gold, I've been doing rituals every day. Like, I've just been making a better person of myself spiritually, physically, and mentally. Reading the books, everything else, just doing Renaissance man kind of thing. It's why I have a whole playlist about being a mythological life in action. Right? And I'm trying to make an insult and mockery of the Great Reset at its face value by living this way and not even being off grid at the same time. I mean, you can criticize me. I just had to get a new phone. So I got a new phone now, and this is my first 5G phone. Not happy about it, but I guess everything's okay. So whatever. Maybe we've acclimated to the energy in a healthy way. I don't know. I don't know if it works like that. I mean, like I've been surrounded by enough of these other Wi-Fi radiations that haven't uh, been an extreme detriment to my health. I know the low-lying detriments. Because I know that you have a weakened biofield. Being in contact with Wi-Fi, even regular LTE or stuff, just basic Wi-Fi. So there's a lot to ward off, if you will, in that respect. And so a great deal of what has made this this change in the paradigm work the way that it did is the open source access to information, especially if it's demonstrations, especially the demonstrations, right? I've watched videos, read articles, or whatever, that have demonstrated to me how I can do things differently for the betterment of myself. And I just kept doing that, and I was able to overcome a great deal of all the victim narratives. All the things that I felt crushed by that are still here. Now that I am personally stronger, physically stronger, now I've got all these things that I've done for myself, all within my control. The burden of those things is much, much, much less. But I'm still scared of a lot of problems. But I'm not as scared as I would be, because even if I were to have some sort of catastrophic failure, I feel like I could, handle it better, being in a terrible situation, right? I'm very, I feel very burnt out as it is. I wish I just had an easier time with simple things like, oh, let me grab my tarot cards, let me grab my runes, let me make a reading video, let me get back to consistency every single week until the magical miracle of somebody wanting my services for money happens. And then I can make some extra cash, and solve a lot of problems. So don't worry about me. Oh, you think there's no pants? Is that what you think? No, no, no. I got shorts on. You can see them. See? It looks that way because the cushion, I'm sunk so far in that you can't quite tell. But I have done plenty of radio shows butt naked. Just in case you needed to know, Crispus. Anyway. All right, so the world had a dramatic change in its relationship with me. So I decided to have a dramatic change in a relationship with myself that reflected the world that had been pressed upon me. And I'm not going to pretend that I am thankful. I'm not giving evil that much credit. If there's anything I've ever hated in stories, because of how insulting it is for people to throw it at you, is when the villain tries to take credit for creating the bad guy. You know, and they play that, oh, you and I are not so different after all. They play that game. They do all that shit, right? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to fucking hear it. I don't need to fucking hear it. I'm going to make healthy decisions either way. It still doesn't change the fact that in this time frame, I still have to be your adversary. That's not over. We can enjoy that little piece of philosophy when this is nothing more than a past life regression that the next iteration of me gets to go over, if such a thing, because I've heard that this is graduation generation for people. Like, I don't know, whatever. I don't care. If I'm coming back with a memory wipe, I will do a past life regression, and then I can talk about how the villain was doing me a favor and say thank you. But not in this lifetime. Not in this lifetime. The game on until my heart stops beating. It's still game on. We're gonna fight. We're gonna fight. That's what these are for. This is for fighting the people that made me this. And so you don't get credit. You get the fight that you asked for picking on me. Isn't that what you wanted? So stop acting like you're all, oh, look at me. Look at me. I'm your big challenger that made a bigger man out of you. Fuck you. You don't get to do that. You don't get to do that. You're a piece of pond scum shit that was a contributor to a zeitgeist that was beyond you in the first place, you insignificant piece of shit. I'm at war with the anti-gods. You think I got time for your condescending little fucking fistfight? That I'm gonna have anyway because you're right here? That's my attitude. And it's not a chip on my shoulder that I carry around like a disgruntled person. I'm pretty happy, I'm pretty healthy, I'm pretty filled with love and light even, you could possibly fucking say. But with just enough shadow. satisfy. But either way, the trade-off is that although the world is not producing entertaining illusions for you, you are capable of unlocking things about yourself that you never thought were possible. And that used to be a personal mess. You know, you'd listen to fitness instructors and various self-help gurus and everything else, and they're always talking about helping you out, putting you through a big transformation, you know, promises and guarantees of X, Y, and Z results if you follow the plan and don't have these couple of obvious issues. But the truth is that we're all just, but you know, we're you know, that used to be like optional. It didn't hurt. There wasn't enough hurt to make it not optional. But anyway, I think this has been a good live stream. I'm gonna call it a night, and I'll catch you guys soon.